I think most people would be shocked to find that the entire schedule has never been tested, and that the government's own advisors have been telling them to do it. This lawsuit hopefully will get wide circulation, and it'll cause the public to demand safety testing and accountability of the CDC. It's just aggressive is very, very euphemistic. I'd call it much worse, but it just, I think it's crazy.
Secretary Kennedy, what do you say to those who just say this is just more anti-vaccine propaganda and that this will only further deteriorate people's trust in vaccines?
What I say, my job as Secretary of HHS is to restore trust in the vaccine program so that parents know that we're telling them the truth, that we tell them the things that we know, that we tell them the things that we don't know, and we tell them the things that, are both good and bad about vaccines. Vaccines are very, very useful in many cases, but they do cause injuries occasionally, and we need to be frank about that, and we need to have compassion toward the children who are injured. We can't gaslight the parents. We can't gaslight the children. We can't marginalize and vilify the doctors and de-license the doctors who report injuries. We can't punish and retract articles by the scientists who document those injuries. We have to start being honest again with the American public. And my philosophy is that public health officials should never lie. They should never, Anthony Fauci used to talk about the noble lie. He would tell people things to get them to do things that were good for them. Well, we're going to start trusting the American public, that they're the best judges of what's good for them, what's good for their kids, and what they need is good information that they can believe, and not information that they've been fed by public health agencies to try to manipulate their behavior. We're a nation of compassion. And, my uncle helped write this bill, and when during the Senate debate, he said, in America, we are not going to ignore people who are left behind. We're not going to try to advance an agenda or advance the American people by leaving the vulnerable, the injured behind. Every child who takes one of these vaccines is entitled to compensation if they get injured. And we need to, as a nation, commit ourselves to compensating them justly, generously, and quickly.
And it's very simple. Pfizer had 270 pregnant women, even though they told women not to get pregnant in the trials. They lost the records of 234 of them, which is illegal, as you know, in a trial. They followed 36 of them to term. And out of the 36, over 80% lost their babies. So it's a small group, granted, but they lost their babies, and we don't know what happened to 234 of them. It could have been even more lost their babies. Like, why were those records lost? But we also know, it's a group of evidence points. We also know from the Pfizer documents that Pfizer told men not to have intercourse with women of childbearing age without using two reliable forms of contraception, which it's a lot more than men usually use, even, after picking someone up at a bar. So Pfizer knew that there was something dangerous to either women or zygotes or fetuses from the semen of vaccinated men. They still don't disclose what that is. Pfizer defined exposure to the injection as including body fluids, including semen. So that's a data point, right? And we also know that in the 8-page pregnancy and lactation report, which went to the White House on April 20th of 2021, there are these two babies who die in utero, and Pfizer says the cause of their death is maternal exposure to the vaccine. We also know the mechanism, right? It's not just what's in the Pfizer documents. 2 independent midwives separately sent me pictures of placentas that are impaired by the spike protein and the lipid nanoparticles. We also know, and you can look this up on the NIH database, it's peer-reviewed, We've known since 2017 that lipid nanoparticles traverse every membrane in the human body with a negative impact on human reproduction. They traverse every membrane. The placenta is a membrane, right? They accumulate in the ovaries. We know that from Dr. Robert Chandler's analysis of the biodistribution in the Pfizer documents, which confirms a Japanese study from the year before, which was broken on the Black Horse podcast by Brett Weinstein and Steve Kirsch, that the lipid nanoparticles accumulate throughout the body, but notably in the ovaries. So I could go on. What about the
ovarian reserve? There's some recent documentation about ovarian reserves being depleted?
Yeah, that study, I believe, showed that there's damage to 60% of the kind of ovarian reserve, I would say backup eggs, but I'm a lay person, that women are born with. I haven't had a chance to look at that, but I haven't seen it debunked.
Here's the problem. The polio vaccine contained a virus called simian virus 40, SV40. It's one of the most carcinogenic materials that is known to men. In fact, it's used now by scientists around the world to induce tumors in rats and guinea pigs in labs. But it was in that vaccine. 98 million people who got that vaccine in my generation got it. And now you've had this explosion of soft tissue cancers in our generation that kill many, 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 many more people than polio ever did. So if you say to me that the polio vaccine was effective against polio, I'm going to say yes. And if you say to me, did it kill more people? Did it cause more deaths than avert? I would say, I don't know, because we don't have the data on that.
I mean, there's no other way. I like you, I didn't want to go there. I certainly didn't want to hypothesize about that. Like you, I'm a real old school journalist, and I only go where the evidence leads. And I'll leave it up to readers, but I know from having looked at the documentation that the volunteers have provided and the primary sources that there's no other conclusion that one can reach that, like, is it a bug or a feature, right? And there's just no other conclusion. Just speaking as a woman, to see a chart of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of women whose menstrual health lives have been ruined, which means, as your colleagues pointed out, rightly, their hormonal health, their mood, their, energy levels. I mean, it's not trivial to destroy the menstrual health of women, let alone, fertility aside, and to keep going, right? Means intentionality, right? If you were destroying men's fertility and you kept going, not just 1 year, but 2 years, 2.5 years.
You say we may
years.
see that, like in the babies being born, is affecting the testes of these babies being born, so that will have its own fertility issue, but really the focus right now on certainly childbearing women or the ability to give birth.
Well, we're seeing it right now. I mean, Igor Chudov is a mathematician who has looked at government databases throughout the Western world, and he's found a 13 to 20% drop in live births. We analyzed government data from one province in Canada, and there's a drop in fertility. And we know why now, right? We know the mechanism. I've just described multiple mechanisms to you. I haven't even talked about the andrology study that found that the vaccine damages the motility and the number of male sperm as well. So from all sides, human fertility is being damaged by this. But let's also look at the geopolitics. We think of Pfizer and BioNTech as German companies, but they're actually, BioNTech, which makes the vaccine, is a German-Chinese company. And they created an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, in 2021 for China, the Chinese Communist Party, our enemies, to produce 1 billion doses of this vaccine, not for internal use. The Chinese use a different kind of vaccine altogether. This is for export. And China opened 14 manufacturing plants in Western Europe, 2, now 11 in the United States. And in 2021, the SEC filing also shows the IP for the vaccine got transferred to China. All right. So what this means is that our manufacture, packaging, distribution, injection, directions for injection of this vaccine is completely in the hands of our existential adversary. And as my husband, who spent his career in Intel, points out, the Chinese Communist Party, they want our land, they want our food supplies, they want our water supplies, they want our energy grid, they don't want our population. And that's what's happening. The native-born, I mean, I'm not a nativist, but Americans, right,
yes, yeah.
were mandated. Who got mandated? Now I'm using my political analyst hat, right?
Yes.
It's not science, it's politics. Who got mandated? Our teachers, our doctors, our nurses, our college students, the future, right? Our military, the people you need in order to have a healthy society going into the future, they got forced. The firefighters, right? The first responders, they were mandated. They're the ones getting sick or struggling with fertility, dropping dead, right, on the playing fields. The people coming in over the border, now 18 to 30 million of them, are not being mandated. And these are disproportionately childbearing age and military age younger men and women. So as Ed Dowd, the former BlackRock hedge fund manager, said, just wait 5 years. You're going to have people who remember what a constitutional republic is, sick and dying. And you're going to have people who come from the most tyrannical regimes or, no rule of law failed states who don't have that consciousness as the kind of healthy population.
Right.